In this video, we're going to talk about how legal documents does not stop God, okay? Divorce filings, divorce decrees, that does not stop God from fulfilling what he told you. So I'm actually going to go over a time where a couple years ago, I was facing eviction, okay? And to be honest with you, I did not have the money to pay my rent, but my landlord was already giving me favors. So I was paying on the rent, but it got to a place where she had no choice but to file eviction. And of course, I went to God. Now, during that time, I had been praying to God about my eviction. And the main thing that he had been telling me was, you're going to pay your rent. Now, the money was coming, okay? So when they put the notice on my door, they said, you have 10 days to pay or respond to this or basically move out. And during that time, I absolutely heard only one thing from God, and he kept saying, you're not getting evicted. During that time, I was working my business and I was hustling, okay? Now, I want you to understand that this part of my life had been challenged before. And it was a time where I thought I heard God tell me I wasn't going to get evicted from the past, and I actually did. So to hear in this situation that I wasn't going to get evicted, it was really triggering. So a couple years before that, I thought I heard God tell me I wasn't going to get evicted, and I did. So to hear that again, I was holding on to faith. Okay, so just imagine you're hearing something and you are trying to believe that it's God talking to you, right? So this is what I was battling during that time because of a previous event where God allowed something to happen to me that I thought he wasn't going to happen, and he let it happen. Now, I can say that I did disobey God in that circumstance, which probably led to that eviction, but still, it was still in my head, okay? So during this time, I kept hearing him say, during the 10 days, Raven, you're not going to get evicted, and I was straight hustling. I was hustling, okay? So the money was coming in, all right? So when it came to like the 8th or 9th day, I still didn't have the money. I think I probably had like maybe over half the money, maybe. Not even half the money. And God then told me to call the courts and ask for more time, okay? So I called the courts. I remember it was on a Thursday. I called the courts and they gave me a court date of next week, Friday, okay? So I still had an entire week to get the money, all right? So I'm hustling, and I'm listening to God, and money is coming in. So I'm still stressed out because I'm like, dang, like I have a little bit over the money that I owe. Like at this point, God was bringing me the sales and I had more than half of the money, okay? But I still needed a little bit more time to be able to get the rest of the money. But it was on a Thursday before the court date. It was on a Thursday, and I called them. Something in my mind was like, call them and ask them to reschedule the court date. So I called them and asked them to reschedule the court date. The lady was like, you got to give me a reason. Why do you need to reschedule? And y'all, I lied, and I said I have COVID. So the lady was like, you have COVID? Well, we can probably do this court hearing on, over the phone or whatever. So I'm like, okay. So mind you, the court date was the next day, and she said she was going to call me back. She never calls me back, y'all. She never calls me back. So I call her early that morning. Now, during the night before that day came, I was praying to God, and God kept telling me, you're not going to get evicted. You're not going to get evicted. Because my thing is, God, I don't want to hear you wrong. And these people come knock on the door and telling me I gotta leave, so I really need this to be you. And if you're walking with God, you will always know if you're about to move. Okay, He's a good Father, so you will always know. You will always know if if you're about to transition. But God was not giving me no sign of me moving. So the next morning comes, and I'm calling the lady, and she was just giving me the runaround. Like, she was giving me the runaround, and she said she would call me back. I never got a call back from her, and a sheriff came to my door and put a notice on my door and said, you missed your court date. You have 24 hours to leave. Now, I am going crazy at this time. Like, I'm going crazy, and I'm like, God, like, I just need more time to get the money. At this time, I had over half of the money. I did. So, but I knew I needed a few more days to grind so that I can get the money. So I went into prayer, and I'm like, God, what do I do? And something in my mind told me to call the landlord. So I called her. Now, I did not originally call her because when they file eviction, they always tell you that you have to call the courts. So I originally called the landlord, and by my surprise, she was there because she's never in her office. And, I explained to her, I said, can I please have until Monday? And, she said, you know what, Raven? I was actually in court when you were trying. I was actually in court when you were trying. And, I do see your payments. I do see that you have been making payments. And she said, Raven, I'm going to give you until Monday, okay, noon, to be able to pay the rest of the rent. Now, because this was a few years ago, from what I can remember, I hustled, okay? I hustled. I was so happy that God moved on this woman's heart to be able to give me time. And you won't believe, when Monday came, I still did not have all the money. When Monday came, I still did not have all the money, and God used a family member just randomly to give me everything I needed so that I could pay my rent. Now, what's the reasoning for me telling this story? Because if you pay attention, I received all the paperwork. I received the notices, okay? They filed eviction on me. I had to be in court. All of these different things. And what God said is what happened, not the paperwork. Even when the paperwork came that said, you have 24 hours to move, God had already been working on the other side of that. So these divorce filings and all of these divorce decrees and all of that does not matter. What is going to happen is what God says, okay? So I know that you guys get so moved by the paperwork and all of that stuff. And I want you guys to understand that whatever the circumstances, you have to live in the spirit. It is whatever God said is going to happen. And during my process of getting the money that I needed to pay the rent, God was talking to me. So God will always be giving you instructions, no matter what paperwork, no matter who says what, no matter what it looks like. He is a good father. He will always give you instructions so that the outcome can be what he is saying and not what the paper says. So if you're getting paperwork that's telling you that you're going to be divorced, believe what God said, okay? Because the paperwork does not dictate whether or not God is going to do it or not. It's by what you hear God telling you to do, okay? Now, if I had followed the paperwork, I would have been homeless, okay? I would have been homeless. I pray that this video encouraged you. Have a good one.